Good day. How are you? Amazing. That's right. Wow. Just the other day, it was Friday the 13th. And in October. And, Friday the 13th doesn't happen all the time. It's like once a year it occurs. But I got something funny to tell you about that. And I want to talk to you about one of the biggest trends this year, end of summer, early fall, and that was Barbie. Oh, wow. And how these two events combined makes sense to me. We'll get into that in just a moment. Let's just take a second and I'll be right back. So, what I want to talk about today is the Friday the 13th and Barbie madness. So, some of you are probably thinking, what is she talking about? Well, let's get into it. What I'm talking about is Friday the 13th. I don't know if you know this, but every Friday the 13th, most tattoo places offer a special deal. They usually charge $13 a tattoo, $7 tip, about $20, $21. Usually they call it Lucky 21 or Unlucky 21. And then the artists at these tattoo places create an ensemble of different types of tattoos you can purchase for that particular date. Most of the time, my experiences have been that I go to a tattoo place and it's really chaotic. However, recently I went to this tattoo place right here in Kissimmee, and it was kind of amazing. I went there previously for another art piece I got on my arm. FYI, I do have tattoos for those naysayers out there. And what I liked that they did is you were able to pre-buy a ticket to guarantee your spot to get your tattoo. That way you're not out waiting. Some tattoo places that I went before, you would be on a line outside around the block, not sure if you would get a tattoo that day. And I'm kind of an early bird, so it worked for me, this new process. What I really loved is the ensemble of artwork they had to choose from. Now, some of you may not be ever interested in getting that. And some of my business tycoon Wall Street colleagues are listening to this may think tattoos, but I'll tell you something. Most of the time for the jobs I've had or careers I've embarked on, I've always worn, sleeves that go all the way down to my wrists. I don't often show off my tattoos. It's kind of like my own thing. However, I have a lot. And for me personally, every Friday the 13th, guaranteed I'm getting a tattoo. As most of you know, I just had a baby, and of course I'm getting my baby's name, and I'm going to get an art piece done on her behalf and for my other kids. Now, some of you may not be into that. Totally fine. You can totally check out all my tattoos. I post them on Pinterest. I really just enjoy that piece of art, and some of my tattoos have milestone moments or they come attached with a story. I usually like to have a tattoo that explains something that I went through, a journey, a hardship, something that had a light at the end of the tunnel. I only get tattoos that reflect those type of moments in my life. So even if I get something silly, there is some type of story aligned to it. Which takes me to the tattoo I got, which is the second part of my conversation with you guys today. So the second part of the conversation of today is Barbie. Okay, so some of you may not be into Barbie and some of you may. Barbie is the number one movie that hit the box office the end of summer this fall and was trending. Everything's Barbie, everything's pink. If you didn't jump on that bandwagon with something pink, you really missed it. And not only that, it was against some heavy hitters I don't really want to get into who was against them, in the box office, but let's just dive into why I really love Barbie. As a little girl, I grew up in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and, it wasn't like a Lower East Side of Manhattan really enchanted life. It was like my mom was a struggling artist, as most of you know, through my storytelling, and my father was just really trying to make it happen for us. Where we lived, we really didn't have a lot. And even though parts of my mom's family did have, we didn't have. And so with that said, not having created situations of, honestly, struggle. But my mom really always tried for us. And one of the things that she tried was, I always had a Barbie doll, which was the funniest thing. That little suckling you hear in the background, by the way, that's my little baby, just having her little milky. But anywho, so having a Barbie doll really meant a lot to me because I always felt like I had like limits. And my mom would say, you know, you could be whatever you want with your Barbie doll. You could do whatever you want with your Barbie doll. You could have any type of house you want. So even though I always felt like, well, I don't look like Barbie, it didn't matter. It did not. In my imagination, Barbie was living her best life, having the best fashion. And it was really just me, my Barbie, my wooden spoon, and my make-believe house made out of 9X yellow pages, because I would stack up all my mom's 9X yellow pages and pretend that that was my Barbie's mansion. It didn't matter what anybody thought I was doing. In my mind, I was having an incredible experience. And I always thought that as I was growing older, like my dad would always tell me that like I was his Wonder Woman and I wanted a Wonder Woman Barbie doll. You know, there was so many different attachments that when I think back on those moments, like the color, that particular color pink is one of my favorite color pinks. And the funny thing is, like, the majority of the time you see me, I'm probably going to be in a button-down shirt, something black, but I will have some type of pink accent. I don't know what it will be, but I do like to incorporate that part of my life because it gives me hope. Is that crazy? Barbie gives me hope. It does. One, anytime you've ever seen Barbie, Barbie has never been disrespectful to anyone. That's really an important factor. You know, a lot of people that know me will say, hey, you know what? You're generous, you're kind, but you're not nice. I don't tend to be nice. I don't know if that is something that's a flaw in my character, but I've never been nice. I'm kind, I'm open, I'm helpful, but I'm going to tell you the truth. If you ask me something, you're going to get it. And I always say, if you don't want to know the truth, don't shop around here, because I like to always make people aware of anything that's going on. However, I don't always take the nice road. I rather not. I rather just tell you exactly what you're getting. And that sometimes, you know, doesn't always play to what I'm trying to do or accomplish. However, I think it's important that I keep it real with everyone. Now, with that said, Barbie has always been nice. I've never, ever heard of a Barbie story, Barbie situation where there wasn't a nicety. And actually, Barbie is working with PBIS in schools. And I know in Europe right now, working on making this accomplishment of how to create or cultivate the environment of good behavior and positive behavior, which is amazing. And I wish that our schools here would incorporate this same energy. Using Barbie as a tool really helps students utilize their resources, understanding their emotions. And, you know, these are things that I'm really caught up in, like trying to advocate for students' well-being, mental health, but also communication, having them understand how to communicate effectively. Why are they working out things this way they are? Why are they acting out? Sometimes students who have the worst behavior are truly the geniuses in the room. And if they're able to understand their skill sets or their potential, they can change their total trajectory of who they become. So for me, I believe that Barbie changed the trajectory of who I became. Because although I always had setbacks, there was a way of thinking, well, I could do this if I wanted to because I imagined I could and manifested it. I really think it's important. Now, how do we blend the two? So my first tattoo I got when I was about 15 years old. And, you know, when you're 15, you don't have that cerebral lobe developed in your brain yet. That doesn't happen till you're 26. You don't got a job like that you're really paying for it. And back when I was 15, there wasn't a lot going on to like make certain establishments of who I was. It was kind of like, it wasn't really a rebellion moment. It was just I want to do it moment, an impulse moment, a want, not a need, not anything to necessitate who I am and my well-being. However, my mom being a peacemaker and wanting me to never have a limitation and never wanting me to rebel against her, she agreed that she would let me get a tattoo. So I went out, got my first tattoo on my arm, and I got a free tattoo on my finger, which was the funniest thing. My mom totally signed off on the whole thing. However, now that I'm an adult, and I don't regret that tattoo, but now that I'm an adult, when I look at that tattoo, it's not really my shining best moments. And it's not something that is like one of the tattoos that I stand on and say, hey, check out this tattoo. It's really kind of like, why did I do that? Like, why did I do that? Could have did anything, right? At the time, I was really like trying to make emphasis of my name, because what I really got tattooed was my name. That's all I did. But I have such a long, and I'm going to use this word that I don't like to use, but I have a long, crazy name. And my name is pretty unique. It's troublesome. When I say my name to people always give me a look like, wait, what's your name? Can you spell it? How many names do you have? So what I did was I tattooed it on my arm. It was kind of interesting because everyone was like shocked. Like, what? Why would you do that? But the truth be told, at the point, I really liked it. And I showed it off all the time. It was like the funniest thing. I was like, hey, look at my tattoo. When I look at it now, there's a lot of history there. And then when I got married, I added my husband's name. There's a lot of history there. However, I don't regret it, but I wish that I would have did something different or changed something about it. And so that brings me to my kids. My kids want tattoos. And I'm not against tattoos at all. I just feel in society, I don't want in society, everybody can get their tattoos when they get it. But for my own kids, I want them to be 26 when they get their tattoos. And they hate that idea. They want to get their tattoos now and at 15. But me personally, my reasoning is, I say a couple of reasons. Here's my first reason. My first reason is I want them to have their cerebral lobe developed, and usually that develops at 26 years old. I want them to have a common sense or a logic behind what they're doing, understanding what they're doing is permanent. And the other thing is, all your children, if you have insurance, they're on your insurance until you're 26 years old. So when they're 26, they have to be their own person, have their own stuff. So I feel like, well, then they're their own person. They could truly go ahead and do what they want to do. However, there's another part. If you're going to get a tattoo, I really feel that person should pay for it. Because when you pay for a tattoo, tattoos are not cheap. Tattoos start like $75 to $100 for like something small. I want them to pay for it and feel the cost of what they got. I really want them to understand and embody what they are doing, be of sound mind, if you will. I think it's so important that they truly just understand. The other piece of that is, sometimes I would say to my kids, you have to have a master's degree, because I wanted to really push them away. Recently, I was getting a tattoo on Friday the 13th, and yes, I got a Barbie tattoo, as I just mentioned, which I love so much. And it was a Friday the 13th tattoo, and I was talking to the gentleman who's doing my tattoo, and he had a lot of tattoos, and he was pretty cool. And he really called me out because I asked him what he thought, and he was like, you are a hypocrite. You are a total hypocrite because you have tattoos. You got your tattoo at 15. He said, if you don't let your kids express themselves with you present, they will rebel against you, go against you, and then you lose that connection, which is true. It is so true, because sometimes I see my friends or family members, the way they police their children, their kids rebel against them. And sometimes they think, well, my kid won't rebel against me, but you can see it. Like, you see it on their feeds, you hear it in their stories. And it's crazy. I really like an open line of communication so that when my kids have these moments in their lives, they can count on their mom and dad to listen without judgment. And so this has really gotten me in a tight conundrum. So I told my husband, like, hey, listen, what do you think about this? And he actually made a good point. He said, if our kid wants to get a tattoo before they're 26, okay, not even 18, like 26. Understand the depth in there. Oh, and I got something to say about that too, because I already hear the feedback. But if our kid wants to do that, they have to have a solid, ironclad, good reason why. And they have to be able to truly speak to those points. And if it's good enough for him, then he really doesn't have anything against it. And I'm like, wow, my husband is very strict. And I was like, wow, like that he felt that way. That really was totally not because like, oh, I want one. Like just a real reason why. What's the methodology of why you want this? What is the concept? What's the cure? Like why do you want it? And so that kind of, again, communication, opening of beliefs, allowing the line to be available, it really speaks to me. So I said, okay, I hear you on that. Let's revisit that. Now, again, I need you guys to understand that saying different strokes for different folks, that's also really important. Everybody needs to really feel the liberties of expressing themselves and not being like stifled into a certain type of situation. But with that said, you don't want your kids to go crazy and be too wild either. So you got to know the differences of where you're at. So I'm going to tell you this. I have family members and friends who they say, oh, when my kid's 18, they need to get out the house. They need to do this. They need to do that. When they're 18 years old, that's it. They're a man. They're a woman. They no longer are my kid. And sometimes I hear that and I'm like, 18, okay? And then I have friends that are like, oh, not until my child's 35 can they get married. They need to do all their schooling. And I'm like, wow, 35? Jeez. I think I had my third kid at 35. For me, my opinion is a little bit in between. I got married at 22, and I've been married to my husband for a long time. Very happy to be with him. I love him so much. For me, my life was a little different. My mom passed away when I was young. I was pretty much, as all of you know, homeless, living on the train in a sense. It wasn't until one of my closest, dearest friends, my sweet cousin Angelina, who I love so much, really took me in, who is just an amazing human and really kept me safe. I felt that time in my life I was not safe. I had no one. And she really opened her heart. And I always speak openly about how much I love her because she makes me feel safe when I talk to her. And sometimes when I speak to her, she just gives wisdom that no one else gives. And it's like real, straight truth. And, I felt, like I said to myself during those times, if I ever have kids, I will never put them through these lessons of hardship, sadness, darkness. It was a lot. And so for me, I say, I tell my kids, whatever you want to do in life, do. Enjoy your life, okay? However, I want you to understand that you will be on my insurance until you're 26 years old. Back to the cerebral lobe. Therefore, they will always have a place with me. However, I really want my kids to, let's say, for example, if they take this path, they go to school, they go to college, 4-year college, maybe they go away, they come back, they get their masters, and then they do what they gotta do. If in fact my kid's at 18 like I'm leaving, or my kid's like, I'm not ready to leave, I'm just gonna be open to it. I think that let me be your resource, let me be your vessel to help you get to that point. Now, definitely, I don't want my kid 35, 40 in my house living in the basement. I want them to do things with their lives. A lot of my kids have ambitions to do great things. And I'm always like, listen, it's your journey. I'm here for you, rooting you on. I want them to feel that type of energy, which they have. Sometimes they get like, oh, Mom, you don't understand. And I'm like, all right, take a moment. And then they come back. You know what? You did understand. We were just not eye to eye. And that's okay, too. It's so important to me that they can leave the nest, but knowing that the nest will always have a space for them. And it's, to me, really, how I think of things. Now, when we go back to the whole logic, right, of the tattoo, why I like tattoos so much is pretty simple. When I was a little girl, my mom was an artist. And she was an incredible artist. Like, her paintings, her poetry, her piano playing, she was really talented. My father was also an artist, an incredible, talented artist. And they were like unfound artists, meaning like not famous, nothing like that. My father was an instrumentalist. He could play any instrument that he picked up. It didn't matter. He could read music. It was amazing. Well, the funniest thing is my mom and dad had a crazy love for each other. And the love they had was insane. And one day my mom was getting dressed and I saw on her stomach a tattoo. And it was my father's name. And I was like, and my father, if all of you don't know, I'll let you know, my father, everybody called him George. And they're like, George, they'll call him George. And they called him George Love, or other names he used, George whatever. But his name was a long, beautiful name, and she had his real name. And he used George because George was his assimilation to the American lifestyle, because my father was from Bolivia. And so when he came, he used that name to get work, to make sure that he had no issues. That was his, just lack of words, his stage name, okay? And so, but she didn't have George. She had his name, Fanor. And I was named for my father. My name is Fanny. And my mom in her mind said Fanny is little Fanor, as you know, Fantastic Life. And so when I saw that, I was like, what is that? Because I never saw a tattoo before, and I never knew she had one. And she's like, that's the love of my life. And my body is my canvas. And so I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I thought about it. Like, no one I knew had a tattoo. Not my father, not my grandparents, not any family member. And no one knew she had one. The other thing is my mom, Jewish. And when you're Jewish, you're not allowed to have a tattoo. It's really against your philosophy of Judaism, because when you get buried in a Jewish cemetery, you cannot have a tattoo on your body and be buried in a Jewish cemetery. They'll cut it out. And so my grandparents were very sad, and they said to her, you can never be buried with us. And that was very sad to them. A lot of Jews went through the Holocaust and they were tattooed, and that was part of it. So my mom and my grandparents were just like not really appreciating why she had it. However, I didn't see it that way. And so my mom, when she died, she was buried in a Jewish cemetery. And, you know, I assume they probably cut the tattoo out of her. You know, and I remember that brought my father heartache. And he said, you know, he really didn't handle any of that, you know, how you think somebody would handle it. And how do you handle death, you know, of your wife, right? And so that was tough. That was very tough to see him go through. And they were so young. You know, my mom was 47. And, you know, to see that happen, it was just terrible. But it brought a beauty of something that was a secret, or something rebellious or dark, or, you know, a tattoo. It really brought something that I was able to see and say, wow, there's so much about that, you know. And for me, I have a high threshold for pain, so it takes a lot to hurt me physically. Like mentally, you know, you call me out my name, I'll be angry all day, right? But when I get a tattoo, they don't hurt. And it's the craziest thing. Some people get hurt like they can't continue. But when I get a tattoo, it usually is regarding something that I went through that caused me pain. And that's kind of sad to think about, right? Like, so I have a tattoo on my arm, and it's a dinosaur. It's a chicken nugget dinosaur, a dinosaur chicken nugget. And my oldest son picked that out. And that was to reflect the kid, or the child that I lost. And nobody knows that. I'm telling you, you're the first to know. But that's why I have that there. It's a reminder of, okay, I lost something so valuable. Really appreciate your kids. Like, look at that and understand to appreciate. That's what that's for. I have a tattoo on my arm of a brain and like lightning going through it. That's because I get seizures. And that's what that's for. Like, dang, let me not get too crazy. I have seizures, you know? Things like this. The other thing is, with my seizures, I have an incredible talent. I have photographic memory for long term. So anything long term or long term related, I completely remember with detail. And it's just something I have this ability to do since I was a little kid. I can remember a lot, stories, word for word. That's how I am. However, with every seizure, I lose my short-term memory. So my short-term memory is horrible. So if I put my keys down somewhere, they're lost unless I put it in the spot that it's intended to be in. And, you know, I think I spoke about this before, and I'm not going to, you know, digress too much on it. So for me, it's like some of these tattoos are really to embody the storytelling of my life. And some things I really do forget about. It's the craziest thing. And I could be lost in a thought, like just now. But I like free flow thinking, free flow talking. And so that's why, a lot of these stories are so important to me. The other thing is, sometimes when I talk to my kids, I forget they weren't there. So a lot of things I tell them is pretty much storytelling. And just the other day, I felt pretty horrible because they didn't know what my mom looked like, or they didn't know certain things. And I assumed they knew because I have pictures and stuff of her on one of those social media websites. But they were like, we don't have access to that, so how would we know? And the saddest thing is, my mom passed away. It was one of our saddest points in our lives. And then we lost where we were living. And then all of our photo albums, antiques, things she collected and cherished were locked in that place. And I was not able to get it. So all of the photos I really had of her, outside of what I had in my own photo albums, was gone. And so, it took a long time. And when my grandparents passed away, they gave me cherished photos of her. But my kids didn't realize, how to look at that. And I said, wow, I really let my kids down. I tell them all these things and I didn't even, let them know about this. So I make sure now that, her paintings everywhere, her stories are available. Only because, it's just my mom and my dad in the grand scheme of things. Everybody has a mom and a dad. But they really cut the shape of how I do and who I am. And it's so changing in my world, because for me, the majority of my life was mourning someone that lost and fighting for someone's life, for them too. And so I always want to just emphasize the importance. And so this is why I personally get tattoos, because I want to never forget certain things that came into my life. I want to see what I have and, oh, that's why I did that. Or this is why I have this. Or wow, I went through that. And sometimes we'll be talking with people, or I'm talking to somebody, and then there's whatever they're saying helps me remember something. And I have a friend that she'll say oh, dark moment, but it is, because not everything you do in life is a happy moment. And one time I told my mom, I said, don't you just want to be happy? And she was like, I don't want to be happy every day. Who wants to be happy every day? And I'm like, I would like to be happy every day. And she was like, no, if you're happy every day, then you don't appreciate it. You need to be sad. You need to be mad. You need to have these feelings in order that when you're happy, you appreciate that happiness. And I was like, wow, I think I was just trying to get ice cream or something, but that lesson came out. But that made me think. So sometimes I do this. And some of you may think, whoa, this is deep. But I'm going to just let you in. Sometimes when I take a shower in the morning, I wake up and I think about anything that's stressful, anything that's hurtful, anything that makes me less than. And I really have a good cry or an inside out cleanse. And I really embody that pain to then release it. And then wash my face and say, it's okay. You got through it. You'll get through it again. And that's really where people will see, well, nobody sees it, right? Because I'm in the shower alone. But that's really the only place that I release. Otherwise, when you see me, you're like, hey, you're pretty happy. Or, hey, you're having a great day. You'll always hear me say the same answer. If someone says to me, hey, how are you? I'm like, amazing. Because I mean it. I'm breathing. I have a life. I have no seizure today. My kids are incredible humans. My husband is an incredible man. I have 2 annoying dogs, 2 annoying turtles. And I mean, how annoying can a turtle be? But I have this amazing, amazing family, an amazing life. I live in an amazing home. What could I complain about? So it's amazing. I never ever say what I do for a living identifies me. That's not the case. That's my baby. I identify who I am. And that's through moments in life. And a lot of people worry oh, this job pays this and that. I never think about that. It will be okay. It will work itself out. Well, let's just get through this moment. And I think that understanding that truly helps heal me. And it might help heal you too. So if you haven't thought about it, getting a tattoo, if it's too much of an investment, I mean, one of my tattoos alone was $750. So if I have a series of tattoos altogether cost $1,200. So I mean, if you're like, well, that's a hell of an investment, definitely think about getting a tattoo on Friday the 13th, because then your total investment, your nest egg, is not in it, but you're able to get something quirky. And if it's too quirky, get it in a space where no one will never see it, and it's just for you and your knowledge. On that note, choose something that brings you life, brings you encouragement, brings you something enjoyable, because when you see it, it will be there forever. So you should really like what you have on your body. With that note, I hope that this was interesting, that it brought you some thinking, and I want to say thank you all. Remember, our lives are full circle when it comes to our journeys, and this journey today, I hope, took you to a new space in your thoughts and how you think about things. With that said, I hope you have a fantastic day. As always, all my best, and see you soon. Be well. Bye now.